Hello, my name is Joseph Garcia, and I've been working on a program to address unemployment called the Quid Pro Quo Jobs program. I've designed the program to hire 10.8 to 21.6 million qualified workers and place them in good-paying jobs within 18 months. The program provides tax credits to qualified employers for hiring jobless qualified workers. Tax credits are based directly on the wages earned by hired qualified workers, and the cost for the full program is a third of the original stimulus. The Quid Pro Quo Jobs program offers 5 main characteristics that I will call the 5 T's. They are targeted, timely, and temporary. These were discussed in the original stimulus. I've added trackable and throttleable. At this time, I would like to go over the 5 T's in greater detail. Targeted. The program targets 2 players, the employer and the jobless workers. The targeted employer would be located in the U.S. They would be able to offer full-time jobs based in the U.S. $20,000 a year. These employers would not have received any assistance from the government, in other words, like AIG or GM. The employer would also be financially secure prior to participating in the program. Now, the employer during participation in the program must maintain solvency. It must not be involved in any bankruptcy proceeding or bankruptcy application. This way, we can protect the workers and protect the taxpayers' investments. Lastly, a key ingredient to the design of this program is that employers must not have laid off workers within 9 months prior to participating in this program or hiring a qualified worker. Now, the exception is if those employers replenish those workers by the same number of workers and at the same wages. Doing that will allow them to participate in the program. Why is this so key? Well, we avoid having employers lay off workers so that they can be rehired with a tax credit, thereby preventing employers from gaming the system. Now, for the other main player of this program, the unemployed worker, this program would require the unemployed workers to be legally in the United States. That means they'll either be a citizen or a resident. They would need to be employed in the U.S., pay U.S. taxes, and have a valid Social Security number. Now, let's work on timely. The program would be timely if we use existing resources and infrastructure to implement the program. For example, we would use the state workforce offices. They would become responsible for verifying worker legal status and coordinating with ICE if required. They would verify that program requirements are being met by the employer. They would provide the IRS with information on the employer and the hired worker, including the date of hire. They would also verify that the worker is living in the United States and not working and living in another country. Employers are paid through a tax credit based on the number of qualified unemployed workers it hires, the wages that are paid to those hired workers, and the financial stability of the employer hiring those workers. All of this is verifiable and auditable. The IRS would have information on both the employer and the worker. The program would set up a declining scale that would start, say for example, at 40% on the first month and decline by 2% for every month thereafter. Now, this scale would be used to do the calculation. For the first month in our program, we will use 40%. This would be any day in a given numbered month. And the hire date would be the date the worker reports to work. So the quicker a qualified employer hires a qualified worker, the higher the percent used to calculate the tax credit incentive. So the tax credit will be maximized for the first month to entice employers to hire workers immediately. Temporary. The program is projected to last 18 months, but changes can be made to suit circumstances. Trackable. The dynamic characteristics of this program allow us to review actual results versus projected results, and make adjustments if they're warranted. Incentives are verifiable and auditable. Tax credit is a function of the participating employee's wages filed with the IRS. Proper tracking systems would need to be implemented if one is not available to meet the program's needs. Throttleable. The program can be adjusted based on actual participation, program budget, or governmental discretion. As the program gains experience month by month, adjustments can be made to the program in program's duration or incentive rate. However, for the design of this program to work, the rate should always have a downward slope as time moves on, thereby creating a sense of urgency for employers to hire qualified workers as quickly as possible to maximize their tax credit. Now let's look at an example. The proposed tax credit is based on the worker's hire date, wages, and tenure. The hire date, the quicker a company participates, the higher the tax credit offered. The hire date is the date the employee or the worker reports to work. The tax credit is based on the worker's earned income over a 6-month period in a year-long service. Tenure. The tax credit is based on the worker's longevity with the employer. 1 year's employment to receive full incentive based on 6 months' wages. Now let's work on an example to formulate a tax credit. The proposed tax credit is based on the worker's hire date. In this particular case is month 1. And we said that's 40%. The worker would be hired at $5,000 a month or $60,000 a year. And the worker would have worked over a year with that employer. The tax credit would equal 40% times $5,000 a month times 6 months, which equals $12,000. So let us look at the Quid Pro Quo Jobs program's limits and requirements. Participating qualified employers would receive tax credits based on worker's program month of hire, his tenure in the company, and his wages. Wages that would not be less than $20,000 a year. The tax credit is also based on the employer's financial health, no bankruptcy, non-participation in previous government bailout, legal business status, and that the employer has not laid off workers in the last 9 months. Program limits. Employer and worker must be qualified. Jobs must be found in the U.S. and be full-time. Tax credit is capped for wages exceeding $200,000 a year. Sign up within the program availability, which is 18 months or shorter if the government deems it necessary. Portion of tax credits are recognized after 3 months of worker's hire date. Full tax credit is realized after worker has completed 1 year's service. Employer is limited to tax credit based on applicable program rate, applied to each worker's wages on their individual hire date for no more than 6 months. If a worker does not complete its year's service, employer receives less than full tax credit. So in conclusion, the Quid Pro Quo Jobs program provides the 5 T's: targeted, timely, temporary, trackable, and throttleable. The program will hire 10.8 to 21.6 million qualified workers and place them in good-paying jobs within 18 months. Through tax credits to qualified employers for hiring jobless qualified workers. Tax credits are based directly on the wages earned by the hired qualified worker, and the cost for the whole program would be 1/3 of the original stimulus. This or any other program to address jobless are at risk of failure. Employers are afraid of future tax burdens. The government is creating uncertainty. We have uncertainty with income tax, health care, TARP, cap and trade, stimulus 1, they're talking about a stimulus 2, and a war tax. The program should be implemented with the original stimulus money, not yet spent. No TARP money should be used. The TARP money should be used to pay down the debt. No stimulus 2 or jobs bill.